been chatting to Christopher Roberts, a classical guitarist and postgraduate studying at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. Chris and other members of the guitar department were due to perform in the Priory this week as part of our programme of Pretorius dances. Some of you may remember Chris from last year as he performed in our programme Strings Old and New, where he featured rather magnificently on the mandolin. I've been very excited to be chatting to Chris as he's performing two solo fantasias by Francesco da Milano, one of the most influential Italian lute composers of the early Cinquecento. Chris will be performing these works on the modern classical guitar. He and I have also been collaborating remotely on a duet. This duet is an interesting collaboration in itself. One part is composed by Francesco da Milano and is found as a lute solo in his third book of intabulations, published in 1547, 3 years after Milano's death. 10 years later, a Flemish composer active in Rome called Johannes Mattelart was obviously pondering on this particular fantasia and decided to write a second part. The two parts, by the two composers, come together beautifully to form the most glorious musical jigsaw puzzle. Hi Chris, nice to see you.
And you?
So Chris, you're a postgraduate studying at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire and you're doing a Masters in Performance. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
And just for the audience watching this, you are a guitarist, you're not a lute player. Your main focus is classical guitar repertoire. So it's very interesting to have you on this episode today because you're sharing with us two beautiful fantasias by the well-known Italian lute composer Francesco da Milano. Can you tell us what is it about this composer and this particular repertoire that interests you?
Yeah, well, I think I first started to get into him through hearing somebody else in college play his music on the guitar. And it's actually only in the last couple of months that I've heard it on the lute, which I also love. But I think it's just the kind of, it just flows so amazingly for me.
Yeah.
And he manages to get so many voices out of just 6 strings.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just beautiful to play. You're just absolutely immersed from beginning to end.
The lute. Have you tried the lute, this repertoire on the lute at all? Or
I haven't actually tried the lute. Part of me would really want to, but I get stuck on the fact that you're meant to play the lute without nails. So I have been really interested to try the medieval lute, partly because the music, in fact it was you who I first heard play that when we played it in the Priory last year. Partly because you play with a plectrum, so it wouldn't interfere with playing the classical.
Yes.
Fascinates me.
That's it. That was really quite an incredible concert because I got you to play the mandolin as well, didn't we? We had an array of
Yeah.
amount of instruments. We had lutes, oboes, bandors, guitars, lots of guitars, and yeah, it was really good fun. And the medieval lute featured a little bit in that one too. And we have this week we have put a duet together. One half of it is quite interesting, this duet, because one half of it is by Francesco da Milano and the other half of it is by Johannes Matalat. And we've put it together remotely, so you're in Birmingham and I'm in Malvern, and you're playing the classical guitar and I'm playing the lute. So it's been an amazing sort of experience, hasn't it? All these sort of different parts of, there's about 4 different people coming together for this one piece. And how have you found that process of doing something remotely and which is meant for 2 same instruments, but has been for 2 separate instruments, the lute and guitar? I mean, personally, I think it's a lovely fusion. How do you feel about it?
Yes, well, I've really enjoyed it. Partly because it's nice to have that connection of being able to make music with someone, even if it is remotely and not live and all that sort of thing. And also, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is the fusion of the old and the new, and what the new can learn from the old, but also what it can give to the old as well. I don't think it has to be one way. And obviously with these pieces, to make it work for the guitar, I have to have a capo on the 3rd fret and tune one of my strings down a semitone. Yeah. And I think one of the parts is for a lute, a tone above as well. So yes, you've got to make some adjustments to make it work. Who don't have a lute but like to play the lute repertoire, do you recommend them exploring this repertoire and making those adjustments, putting the capo on, tuning the 3rd string? Do you think it's a nice sort of area to explore, a nice string to your bow, as it were? Yes, yeah, definitely. And I think I was thinking about this earlier actually. De Milano, I think, is a really nice place to start, because it was written, I think, for a lute that didn't have all the lower courses that some of the later lutes did, right, on the oboes and things like that. And so you can actually play it in terms of the notes more or less as it's written, and you can play directly from the tablature, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, again, opens a lot of doors for modern guitarists. If they just get to grips with the lute tablature, and suddenly this new world opens up, doesn't it, of repertoire. I think that's a nice thing. And we cover that in our transcription class at the conservatoire too. So
yes,
never a
yeah, totally. I was thinking, yes, doing the duo was interesting, because a year or 2 ago I would have had to go away and write it all out, but actually this time I just read from the tablature, which I'd not actually done before.
Great. It's wonderful. The classes are working.
Yeah.
on the cusp of entering the professional world as a musician, and you've got an album out, which is really exciting and very, very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about this record you've recorded?
Yeah, so it very much fits with the kind of the whole old with the new thing, because it takes the kind of medieval bardic music of the Welsh harp, and I've kind of transcribed some of those pieces for the guitar, and then placed those alongside some new commissions based on those pieces. So I was very lucky to work with a composer called Ansel MacDonald, who's based in Belfast, and he's an absolutely fantastic composer, and he's written something a little bit akin to the Nocturnal After John Dowland by Benjamin Britten, but with the Welsh harp pieces as the source material.
Right.
And he's just created this amazing journey from something quite distant from the harp pieces to something then really, really close, and then you play the harp pieces to finish.
Okay.
And then there's also some West African music, because I noticed a lot of similarities between the Welsh bards and the West African griots, only that the Welsh bards lived kind of 400, 500, 600 years ago, but the West African griots are very much still a living tradition. So yeah, all of those things kind of combined to make this slightly mad project.
So it's an album that spans quite a few centuries and complements those sort of different genres complement each other. I just want to go back to the Welsh bard music that you focused on, which was part of an oral tradition. So where did you get the evidence from this, and have you made arrangements? Although it's an oral tradition, was it written down in any form?
Yes, so it was written down sort of retrospectively in, I think it was a very early 1600s, by Robert ap Hugh. But he was notating music from, some of it can be traced back to 1200 or something like that. It's kind of captured in this beautiful harp tablature. It looks like it's just block chords, but then the way that's interpreted through the little symbols above each of the chords creates these really, really beautiful melodies that kind of really slowly unfold throughout the pieces. Some of the pieces can be up to 20 minutes or more, and some of them can be about 2 minutes.
And what is your album called?
It's called Adra, which means home in Welsh, because I'm from Cardiff, and it was kind of partly a way of me connecting with my roots, or sort of roots. I was actually born in England, but Wales is very much home for me. So it was kind of a way of consolidating that for me.
And am I right in thinking that you've sort of you've been inspired to learn Welsh and become more fluent in it from doing this recording? Is that right?
I kind of wanted to learn, partly because something felt slightly wrong and possibly a bit colonial about taking this beautiful Welsh music without making an effort to learn the language, and partly just kind of a way to get more into that musical world as well.
Well, Chris, that's wonderful. I wish you every success with this album, and if folks want to order a copy, there's Chris's web address, which is coming up on the screen, and you can go to his website and order a copy of it. Chris, it's been wonderful having you on the Priory Early Music Series. Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful Fantasias by Francesco da Milano. I wish you every success with your album and your future career. And how do you say goodbye in Welsh?
It's Hwyl Fawr.
Next time, Holly Teague will be joining me, and she and I will be sharing with you an early folk song called The Three Ravens from Thomas Ravenscroft's book Melismata, published in 1611. Please do keep those photographs coming. Until next time. Bye.